Without further ado, let's get into the video, shall we? So, at fullback, I've decided to go with Matt Sears. He played for the club in the 1990s. He played 133 first grade matches and featured in 3 preliminary finals. On the wing, I've decided one of the wingers is going to be Harold Hardy. He played for the club in the 1920s. He scored 50 tries in 50 games. He won 2 premierships with the club, and he scored 20 points in the 1922 grand final against Glebe, where he scored 2 tries and kicked 7 goals. In the left centre position alongside Harold Hardy, I've gone for Cess Blinkhorn. He played for the club in 2 periods between 1914 and 1918, and then he come back in the 1920s where he won 2 premierships with North Sydney. He scored over 70 tries in 90 games in total for North. From all accounts, he was one of the best centres in the time period, and he had one of the best fens in the competition. He was also voted as one of the best players in the 20th century. So he gets me pick at the left centre. The other centre, I've gone for Greg Florimo. He holds the record for the most games played for the club with 285. He played in 4 preliminary finals for the club in the 1990s. You'll never find a more loyal clubman than Greg Florimo. Even if you go to North Sydney Oval next year when the season's back up, you'll probably see him out there setting up the training gear, setting up the tackling pads. Even at the away games, you'll see him there setting up stuff and helping out the club wherever he can. He was a great player on the field, great leader, very talented. There's a highlight video of him on YouTube somewhere. I've seen it. If I can find the link, I'll put it in the description below as well. But he's got some good highlights, and he scored a lot of tries for the club. The other winger is a no-brainer. I've gone for Ken Irvine. He played for the club in the 50s and 60s. He holds the record in the NRL, New South Wales Rugby League competition for the most tries ever scored with 212. He played for North during a time period when they weren't the best team, but he always managed to be the top try scorer for the club and managed to rack up all those tries. He scored 171 in total for North. Also, the scoreboard's named after him at North Sydney Oval. That's an interesting fact for you if you didn't know. But he was an amazing player, probably the greatest ever player that North Sydney have ever had. So he's a no-brainer for the winger spot. In the at 5'8", I've got Michael Butner. He played for the club in the mid to late 90s. He scored 21 tries in the 1998 season, which is the club record. He was a fantastic player, had a great partnership with Jason Taylor in that time period, so he gets me picked for the 5'8" position. At halfback, as I just mentioned there, I've picked Jason Taylor. He was a great player, a great halfback, deadly accurate goal kicker. He holds the record for most points with the club, holds a few other records. He won the 1996 Rothmans Medal while playing for North Sydney. So he gets me picked for the halfback position. The props, I've gone for Mario Fennick and Billy Wilson, Captain Blood. Billy Wilson, he was playing for North Sydney when he was 40 years old. He initially played for St George, but he come over and played about 4 or 5 years towards the end of his career with North Sydney. The other prop, Mario Fennick, he joined the club from South Sydney. He brought a lot of competitiveness, toughness. He brought a winning mentality to North Sydney, which was lacking for a few years there. He played in 2 preliminary finals for the club. I always remember when he run on the field after North Sydney beat Brisbane in 1994. It just showed the competitive nature and showed how much he was willing to win and how much he wanted to win. And hooker, I've gone for Mark Soden. This was a tough one, but I decided to go for Mark Soden because I grew up watching Mark Soden play. He was very quick out of dummy half, very elusive, very smart, knew exactly where to go when the play was going, and he was a great player, very loyal clubman. In North Sydney, played 170 matches for the club. The second rowers gone for David Fairley and Gary Larson. David Fairley was the Rothmans medal winner when he was with North in 1994. He was a fantastic second rower, always reliable. And the other second rower, Gary Larson. With Gary Larson, you always knew you were going to get 110%. He was great in defence, great in attack. He was a bit like Reed Price, Mr. Perpetual Motion. He just didn't know when to stop, and you always knew with Gary Larson he'd never ever let you down on the field. At lock, I've gone for Billy Moore. Billy Moore, you could see he was a bit like Greg Florabo, incredibly loyal to North Sydney. He had North running through his veins. He was a fantastic player, very tough. He was the lad that invented the Queensland Day chant in the State of Origin arena. And to show how loyal he was as a player, when North were forced to merge with Manly in 1999, at the end of 99, he retired and he come out and said that I can't play for anyone else but North Sydney. And he was only 28 at the time. He'd already played over 200 games for the club, but he could have kept going as well, but he just turned around and said, I can't play for anyone else but North Sydney, and that just shows how loyal he was. On the bench, the face spot, I've gone for Mark Graham. Mark Graham is a fan favourite in North Sydney, very tough player, very competitive. One of the star players for the club in the 1980s. He was one of the first players to come over from New Zealand and make a name for himself in the Australian competition, so he gets one of my bench spots. The other bench spot, the second one, goes to Don McKinnon. He was one of the club's main front rowers for many, many years. He represented Australia when he was playing for North Sydney. He comes from a rugby league family where I think his dad and his brothers and everyone played for North. He played over 160 games for North Sydney in first grade, so he gets me nod for the second bench spot. The third bench spot goes to Herman Peters. He played in those 1921 and 1922 teams. He was a great centre. He scored over 60 tries in 101 games, and he was very unlucky not to get higher representative honours than what I think he only managed to represent New South Wales. He got close to representing Australia but didn't quite make it. But he's my third bench spot. And my fourth bench spot, my last bench spot, goes to Duncan Thompson. He played in the same time period as Herman Peters. He played in the 1921 and 1922 Premiership winning teams. He captained the club in the 1922 Grand Final victory over Glebe. From what I've read about Duncan Thompson, he was well ahead of his time, a brilliant tactician, a brilliant short kicker, long kicker, great passer. He was a fantastic halfback from all accounts. The stand at North Sydney Oval, the oldest one of the stands, was named in his honour in 1929. And also another interesting fact, early on in his career, he went over and fought for Australia in the First World War, and he was shot, and the doctors said that there's a bullet lodged in your chest area and you're never ever going to play rugby league ever again. And he went on to go play another 10 years or so of rugby league, so he proved them wrong. And it just shows how tough and how competitive he was, and what type of a person he was. And for coach, I've decided to go with Peter Louis. Peter Louis was the coach of North Sydney between 1993 and 1999. He left the club with a winning percentage of 60%, which is quite impressive. He guided them to 4 preliminary finals, got really close to that elusive premiership, that elusive grand final, but just fell short. But he's my pick for the coach. I could have gone with Chris McKivitt, but I've decided to go for Peter Louis. So that's me greatest ever North Sydney Bears team, 1908 to 1999. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like. If you're enjoying the content that I'm creating, then please subscribe to my channel. Click that notification bell so you get a new email every time I do a video. And if you have some spare time, go over to Rugby League history. I'll put a link in the description below, like I mentioned earlier, and go check it out. But until next time, I'll catch us all later. Take care. Ta-ra.